It's funny how sometimes the most revealing moments happen in the most mundane places, like a Tuesday morning inside a quiet bank branch. Appearances, well, they can be the most misleading things in the world.
Absolutely. We walk around with these ingrained assumptions, right? These mental shortcuts that can completely blind us to what's really going on or, who someone really is.
And that's exactly the territory we're diving into today. We've been digging into a stack of sources, primarily centered around one really compelling story from a collection about unexpected encounters.
Yeah.
This one, it unfolds at Guardian State Bank's West Haven branch, just after they opened maybe 9:03 a.m. one morning.
It's a narrative that starts with a very ordinary interaction. Seems simple enough, but quickly exposes something much deeper about human nature, perception, and, well, respect, or the lack of it.
So our central figures are introduced almost immediately. There's Elliot Dandridge, described as a 63-year-old man arriving in a wheelchair. He's unassuming in appearance, worn clothes, quiet demeanor, cap pulled low. The sources are really specific. He didn't look like someone important,
Yeah.
and they highlight this wasn't accidental. He chose to look that way.
And then you have Megan Alcott, the front desk employee. She's presented as the opposite in terms of immediate presentation.
Yeah.
Platinum blonde, sharp bob, seems very much in control. Polished.
So Elliot asks, simply and politely, to speak with the branch manager. You'd think that's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Just a normal request.
But that's where the story hooks you. Megan's reaction is instantaneous. It's dismissive. And it's based entirely on her visual judgment of Elliot. You can almost feel the tension click up a notch in the room just from the description.
Yeah, it's not just a story about like bad customer service. It's really a case study in underestimation and what happens when you judge a book purely by its cover. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this encounter, understand the mechanics of the moment, and pull out the key insights it offers us about dignity, bias, and the fundamental way we treat people.
Okay, let's jump right into that initial interaction. Elliot arrives. He's calm, visibly not presenting as high status. The sources repeatedly emphasize this deliberate choice not to look important.
And Megan's response is immediate. Doesn't really engage, just glances up and the first words out are, "Do you have an appointment?" Doesn't even wait for a full answer, just kind of cuts him off.
And what happens next is crucial, really sets the tone. She turns to a coworker, but speaks loud enough for Elliot and everyone else in the waiting area to hear. She mutters something dismissive, basically implying Elliot is a time waster. Something like, Betty's here to cash somebody else's check or complain about something we can't fix.
Oof. That casual public dismissal? You can almost feel the discomfort ripple through the other clients waiting. The sources note heads turning, people shifting uncomfortably. It's awkward.
And Elliot's reaction to this is key to understanding his character later on. He doesn't react defensively, no anger. He's described as blinking slowly, tilting his head. But it's framed as a tilt of calculation, not surprise or hurt. Almost like he expected it.
And his response is just quiet persistence. "I can wait, but I'd still like to speak with the branch manager." Very calm.
But Megan is already locked into her judgment, isn't she? Her impatience escalates visibly. Big sigh, loud sigh, states the manager isn't available for walk-ins, and her voice starts rising as she says she doesn't really have the patience today.
Okay, so this is the point where someone else steps in. Eduardo, one of the client services representatives, he's described as older, Latino, and he seems to be trying to diffuse things, quietly suggests Megan lower her tone.
She just snaps back at him, dismisses his attempt to intervene entirely, just shuts him down.
But what stands out here is Elliot. He gives Eduardo this quiet nod, like a simple acknowledgement that seems to say, "Thank you, I see you." But he doesn't look to Eduardo to, fight his battle.
Yeah.
He turns right back to Megan.
And just repeats his calm, simple request for the manager. He's maintaining his own quiet control even while she's escalating. It's quite a contrast.
Okay, so Megan is clearly done with this conversation in her head. She rolls her eyes, slaps a clipboard down, tells him the protocol, sign in, wait, maybe an hour. Like she's doing him a huge favor just letting him wait.
And this is where Elliot takes a different path. Instead of signing in, he calmly opens a leather folder on his lap. And the tension in the waiting area, it's described as palpable. The sources say the room, already tense, seemed to hold its breath. Everyone is watching this unfold now.
Megan, incredibly, is still muttering dismissively. Something about people demanding attention, loud enough for him to hear. Eduardo is just observing silently at this point. Probably knows better than to jump in again.
Right. And Elliot's demeanor remains steady. He's taking his time, deliberate. The description makes it clear he looks unsurprised by Megan's behavior, like he's seen this dynamic far too often. It's sad, really.
He then takes out a tri-folded document, slides it onto the counter, and taps it, asking her simply to give it to the manager.
Her immediate reaction, it's telling. She dismisses the document itself, calls it unsolicited paperwork, and starts talking about their online complaint process. She's still pegging him as a complaint based on how he looks.
But Elliot gently corrects her. It's not a complaint. It's documentation. And she cuts him off again, louder this time, just insisting he needs to wait. She's really doubling down.
You can feel the atmosphere shifting, though. The other clients are noticing. Someone whispers, she's talking to him like he's a child. And the source notes the irony. Elliot clearly doesn't need defending, but the disrespect is so obvious others are reacting to it.
And Megan, seemingly oblivious or just not caring about the effect she's having, dismisses the document with her fingernail, just flicks it and tells him to move. He's not going to sign in. This seems like her final complete dismissal. Just move along.
It is, and this is the key turning point. Elliot turns away from her, towards Eduardo, and simply asks him to look at the document.
And Eduardo, despite Megan starting to object, he steps forward. The sources describe his gesture to stop Megan as quiet, firm. He overrides her authority without yelling, just steps in.
Eduardo picks up the document, he scans it, and his eyes just widen. The shift in his posture, his expression must have been immediate, right? He states clearly, this is from corporate.
Megan's reaction is just pure confusion. What? Like it doesn't compute.
Eduardo reads the bottom again, maybe a signature or a department, then turns to Megan, his tone now firm, decisive. He tells her, get Brian, the manager, now. No, please, no maybe, just now.
Megan hesitates for a beat, but she complies. You can picture the loud sigh. She turns her back to call Brian. While she's doing that, Elliot's just observing the room again. The client's watching him openly, this teenager texting, but with his eyes clearly on Elliot. An older man nodding slightly, another woman clutching her purse, but totally captivated.
When Megan hangs up, she mutters something, clearly trying to distance herself from the mess she made. Elliot quietly thanks Eduardo.
And Eduardo makes a comment, something like, they don't get many corporate visits, and he hadn't recognized Elliot. And Elliot's reply, this is a first real hint of the deliberate nature of his visit. That's the idea.
Oh yeah, that line. That's the idea. And for the first time, Megan really seems to hear him. And the word corporate, paired with that quiet confidence, her tone flattens, becomes cautious. But the sources point out she still hasn't apologized or asked what's going on, still maybe hoping this can be explained away.
And right then, we learned that another employee, Terrence Holland, a young teller, he pauses his transaction, sees the whole scene, and quietly decides to record it on his phone. He hesitates, but then presses record. That decision, seeing something isn't right and documenting it, that takes a certain kind of quiet courage too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It shows awareness. And the whole atmosphere has shifted. The tension hasn't necessarily broken, but it's transformed from awkwardness and dismissal to, like, anticipation and curiosity. The teenager whispers to his mom about undercover boss, and his mother's reply is really insightful. He doesn't need to be undercover. He's got presence.
Exactly. It's not about the disguise. It's about something intrinsic. And Megan's silence, her evident discomfort, confirms she feels that shift too. Eduardo is pointedly ignoring her glare now.
Just as the moment is hanging there, another person arrives. Judith Emery, described as a regional investment client, our regular, knows the place, and she immediately recognizes Elliot.
Mr. Dandridge, she says warmly, just cutting right through the tension. And this confirms it for everyone, especially Megan, that Elliot is someone significant, someone known in the bank's higher circles. The game is up.
Judith has this brilliant, understated exchange with Megan, too. After Elliot mentions Megan didn't know he'd be there, Judith just looks at Megan and asks, is that so?
The subtext, it completely silences Megan.
Judith sits down, calm, and notes that Elliot is already making an impact. Elliot offers a soft chuckle. Even in this, he's understated.
And this is the point where Terrence stops recording. He realizes the nature of the situation has fundamentally changed. This wasn't a fight, he thinks. This was a reveal.
And Megan finally speaks to Elliot directly, but she's looking down. I didn't know, she says, kind of weakly.
Elliot's response is direct, but not cruel. I didn't know who you were, he says. That's the point. Simple, devastating. And then he delivers the question that is truly the core of this whole interaction, the one that just hangs in the air. Would you have spoken to me differently if I looked the same but wasn't someone important? The sources emphasize the silence that follows, how the weight of that question fills the room. And of course, there's no answer from Megan. What could she say?
And right on cue, Brian Covington, the branch manager, emerges. He's described as having a former linebacker build, but with glasses, suggesting, intelligence and a quiet strength. He's portrayed as someone who understands people, reads a room.
Brian sees Megan's face, then sees Elliot, and recognition dawns. The sources say it's not full-blown panic, but close. He knows this isn't good.
He immediately addresses Elliot respectfully. Mr. Dandridge confirms it's him. And Elliot's simple nod and calling him Brian, just Brian, brings a new layer of formality and, frankly, coldness to the reception area.
Brian expresses surprise at the visit, tries to sound welcoming, and Elliot reiterates his purpose flatly. Surprise visits help me see things for what they really are. Brian gets it immediately. He understands what this implies.
Megan, still trying to piece it together or maybe salvage something, interrupts again. Wait, he's not just from corporate. She's still stuck on the title, the label, not the substance.
Brian cuts her off with just a look, a powerful look apparently, and tells her they will speak later. You know that conversation is coming.
Elliot then directs Brian to the document. Brian takes it from Eduardo, reads it, and his jaw visibly clenches. Whatever is in that document confirms everything, seals the deal.
Elliot then shifts focus, very businesslike. He asks about the branch cameras, confirms the 6-point coverage, and requests the morning's footage be reviewed immediately and a copy sent straight to legal.
Brian's response is immediate. Absolutely. No hesitation. He knows protocol, and he knows the seriousness of this.
Megan tries to interject one more time, her voice cracking, clearly seeing where this is heading, probably trying to backtrack or apologize or explain.
But Elliot cuts through it with a firm, direct statement aimed right at her. You meant exactly what you said. That's the problem. Ouch. Then he wheels himself down the hallway with Brian, leaving Megan standing there, described as visibly shrinking. The moment for explanations has passed.
So they go into Brian's office. The sources detail the footage review. Brian admits he's seen glimpses of Megan's behavior before, maybe let it slide, focused on targets and metrics, you know how it is. But seeing this raw interaction, he recognizes this was something else. He's seeing the unvarnished truth.
And Elliot makes his position clear. He wasn't there on some kind of mission to get people fired, but he also wasn't going to accept being spoken to like a street beggar. His presence wasn't about setting a trap, it was about observing the real culture.
Meanwhile, back out in the lobby, the quiet continues. People are processing. Judith Emery, the investment client, observing the lingering uncertainty, quietly announces to the room that Elliot owns part of this bank.
Bam! The reaction is exactly what you'd expect. Jaws dropping, whispering. The full scale of the underestimation of Megan's mistake just lands with a thud.
Judith elaborates slightly, describing Elliot as a brilliant investor, private, doesn't talk much, but when he does. And Mr. Fairley, a longtime client who saw the whole thing, connects the dots. He watches before he acts. Ah, so that quiet observation. It's his MO.
Megan comes back out into the lobby, apparently still trying to grasp for some kind of defense. She tries to claim she was just following protocol, or maybe that her earlier comment was just a joke. Really grasping at straws now.
And Eduardo delivers the perfect quiet counterpoint. He just asks her, "Were you laughing?" Of course she wasn't. There was no humor in it, only disdain. That question just cuts through the excuse.
Brian and Elliot emerge from the office. Brian takes Megan aside again, this time for the conversation where the consequence is delivered. The sources give us some highlights. Brian shows her stills from the footage, calls it documentation, using Elliot's word, and challenges her not just on not knowing who Elliot was, but on speaking to anyone that way. That's the real point.
He tells her honestly, you meant every word, you just didn't expect to be caught. He even brings up previous, less serious complaints about her tone, showing this wasn't a one-off bad day, but a pattern.
And Brian states clearly he's firing her because he should have acted sooner, not just because the owner happened to be there today. He takes responsibility for allowing that behavior to fester.
And Megan's final line is just heartbreakingly misdirected. He humiliated me. Brian's correction is final and sharp. No, you did that to yourself.
Megan leaves. Badge gone, coat clutched, avoiding eye contact. The consequence feels completely inevitable, directly linked to her consistent behavior, not just Elliot's position. It wasn't about who he was ultimately, but how she treated someone she thought didn't matter.
So after Megan is gone, Brian brings the rest of the staff together in the lobby. Eduardo, Terrence, the people from the loans desk, the tellers, even Clarence the janitor. They're understandably uncertain, probably braced for a lecture or blame.
Elliot addresses them. He's still in his wheelchair, quiet, but with this undeniable gravity about him. Not angry, just serious.
And his message is incredibly powerful. He starts by telling them straight up he didn't come to trap or fire anyone. He visits branches like this specifically to see how people are treated when they look like they have nothing to offer. That's the test.
He tells them clearly that today he was treated like a problem, an inconvenience, just baggage.
And that the treatment only changed when Megan perceived he had power or status. That flip is what bothers him.
He shares a bit of his own life experience being underestimated, dismissed. He says he's actually fine with that on a personal level. He doesn't need external validation. But that doesn't make the behavior right, especially not here.
He specifically addresses Terrence, the young teller who recorded the interaction. He acknowledges that seeing something wasn't right and pressing record takes something. It takes a bit of courage, or at least awareness.
Mhm.
He tells Terrence he can delete the video now because the lesson's already here. The point's been made.
Terrence deletes it, saying he just didn't know what else to do. And Elliot's response is really validating. You didn't need to fix it, you just needed to acknowledge it. Acknowledgement is the first step, right? Just seeing it for what it is.
Then he commends Eduardo for speaking up because it was the right thing to do, telling him it means more than he knows. When Eduardo admits he thought he might get written up for contradicting Megan, Elliot's reply underscores the kind of culture he wants. Maybe in another bank, not this one. Setting a standard.
He addresses those who stayed silent, acknowledging that sometimes you freeze in a moment like that, it happens. But then he delivers the core lesson, the absolute heart of the story, the takeaway for everyone. The way you treat a person when you think they can't help you, that's the version of yourself the world remembers.
Wow. Yeah. He challenges the staff directly. They don't have to be perfect. Nobody is. But they have to try. Every client, every single person who walks in is trusting them with more than just money. They're trusting them not to humiliate them, not to reduce them. It's about basic dignity.
He reinforces that Megan's departure wasn't his doing, fundamentally. It was due to her own actions, exposing something toxic that shouldn't exist in a place that's supposed to be built on trust.
And he empowers them. This branch can be different. They, the people standing right there, can set the tone, create a place where everyone feels they belong and is treated with respect. That choice, he says, is theirs. It's on them now.
Brian's reaction sums up the moment perfectly. We all needed to hear that. And Elliot's quiet challenge back is potent. Let's hope you take it with you. Don't just hear it, live it.
As Elliot begins to leave, you start to see the lasting impressions, the quiet shift actually beginning. It's not just words.
Clarence, the janitor, steps forward. And this feels incredibly significant, the person often most overlooked in these environments. He's been there over 30 years, seen everything, and he quietly thanks Elliot for how he handled it, introducing himself by name.
Clarence shares his perspective, talks about seeing people come and go over the decades, those who can't look others in the eye, those who acted like they were too important to say hello. That kind of thing stays with a man, he says, that feeling of being invisible.
And Elliot agrees, reinforcing the theme. Respect doesn't come from a title. Clarence just nods. He knows.
Then the woman from the loans desk also speaks up, expressing regret for not saying something earlier, for freezing. And Elliot's response is simple validation. And now you have. It's about the willingness to change, to speak up next time, maybe.
Clients are lingering, visibly processing what they've witnessed and heard. Judith makes a final comment to Elliot about his speech, hoping actions will follow the words.
Brian offers Elliot a formal apology letter he must have written, but Elliot declines it. He emphasizes that he saw the branch today for what it really is, the good and the bad, and tells Brian he needs to show them, the staff, the clients, what will become through actions, not paper.
And then this small, hopeful moment from Terrence, the teller. He asks Elliot if he'd consider coming back sometime to speak to new hires or interns, believing people would really benefit from hearing this perspective firsthand.
Elliot says he'll think about it. It's a request not born of protocol or obligation, but from a genuine understanding of the value of the lesson he just imparted. It resonated.
Elliot leaves. A client holds the door for him, just a simple act of courtesy, the kind of small dignity that was pointedly missing earlier from Megan. A nice little bookend.
Back inside, the atmosphere isn't tense anymore. It's quiet, yes, but it feels like a realignment, like everyone's recalibrating.
Eduardo and Terrence are reflecting in the break room later. They say they've never seen anything like it happen in real life, only in movies. But this felt different. This felt more honest, they conclude, because it wasn't scripted drama.
Clarence is watching from the window, described as having a look of quiet satisfaction. And Brian places that untouched apology envelope in a locked drawer, understanding that some things didn't require display. They just needed to exist as internal commitments. reminders.
And the sources suggest things did change subtly but surely. The surface operations were normal, but the interactions were different. Terrence making more eye contact, the loanswoman being more attentive, Eduardo watching the lobby with a renewed perspective, maybe more vigilance.
Judith Emery calls corporate afterwards, and her quote is a final, succinct summary of the whole thing. Your people don't need more training, they need more listening. Powerful.
And perhaps the most powerful sign of the shift comes later. The teenager who was texting earlier, he returns, wanting to open his first account. And why? Because he thought, that guy was cool. He saw dignity and quiet strength in action.
And Terrence's positive response to him. That simple, respectful interaction captures the true purpose of the day's difficult events. It was rooted in simple dignity, not who got fired or who held the power. It's about how you make people feel.
Brian's final, quiet words to the staff at the end of that day bring it all home. Let's make sure we never need a reminder like that again. A commitment to doing better.
The concluding thought from the sources leaves us with this powerful idea. Power doesn't always announce itself loudly. True character is often revealed when no one thinks they're looking, or when they think the person they're dealing with doesn't matter.
Yeah, the story is really a masterclass in perception and what's revealed when those perceptions are challenged head-on. Real power, the kind that lasts and impacts, often watches, listens, and, well, teaches, sometimes in uncomfortable ways.
It really boils down to that fundamental truth, doesn't it? How you treat someone when you believe they have no status, no power, nothing to offer you, that is the most authentic test of your character. That's who you really are.
It really is. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what does this story of Elliot Dandridge and the bank branch reveal to us listening right now? What's the takeaway?
Well, it circles back to that core idea, maybe the dignity of underestimation, but also just the profound ripple effect of treating everyone with basic respect, regardless of their clothes, their perceived status, or what you think they can do for you or to you.
Your true self isn't shown when you're trying to impress your boss or a potential client, is it? It's shown in those small interactions and how you treat the person you think has no influence, no power over you, or maybe someone you think you can safely dismiss without consequence.
This story really invites us all to ask ourselves a question, doesn't it?
It does. Maybe take a moment, think about your own day-to-day interactions. Are you making unconscious judgments based on appearance or perceived importance? We all do it to some extent, right?
Yeah, it's easy to fall into. So the question is, how might your interactions shift, even subtly, if you consciously focus simply on extending kindness and respect to everyone you encounter, stripping away that internal calculation of their value to you?
Because stories like this, revealing profound human truths in the most unexpected, ordinary moments, well, they're happening all around us all the time. You just have to be willing to truly see and to listen.